How does someone go from being a beloved comedic star to one of the most polarizing figures in entertainment? James Corden's meteoric rise from a small-town British comedian to a global sensation seemed like a dream come true. With the breakout success of Gavin and Stacey and his viral reign on The Late Late Show, he became a household name almost overnight. But behind the laughter and catchy carpool karaoke tunes lies a complex story of skyrocketing fame, public missteps, and an image that went from adored to divisive. What caused the cracks in his seemingly perfect rise to stardom? Why did fans and peers turn on someone who once brought so much joy to their screens? And as James Corden's career continues to evolve, is there still room for redemption? Let's dive into the story behind one of entertainment's most controversial figures. James Corden's rise to stardom is a story filled with laughter, creativity, and ambition. Born on August 22, 1978 in Hillingdon, London, Corden seemed destined for the entertainment world. He grew up in a family that supported his artistic inclinations, with a musician father and a mother who worked as a social worker. From an early age, he displayed a knack for entertaining, often cracking jokes or performing for family and friends. These moments hinted at the charismatic entertainer he would one day become. His journey into the spotlight began modestly. After attending the Jackie Palmer Stage School, where he honed his acting and vocal skills, he started landing small roles in British television. Appearances in shows like Boys Unlimited and Teachers gave him his first taste of screen time. But these early roles didn't fully showcase his comedic potential. It wasn't until the early 2000s that Corden's career took a significant turn. His role in the popular British TV drama Fat Friends earned him critical acclaim and a nomination for a Royal Television Society Award. It also laid the groundwork for what would become his breakout moment. In 2007, Corden co-created and starred in Gavin and Stacey, a sitcom that would change his life forever. Teaming up with Ruth Jones, he crafted a show that resonated deeply with audiences. The series followed the love story of an ordinary couple, while highlighting the quirks of their friends and family. Corden's portrayal of Smithy, a lovable yet slightly obnoxious best friend, struck a chord with viewers. His comedic timing and relatable character made him a household name in the UK almost overnight. Critics lauded the series for its heartfelt writing and clever humor, and it went on to win multiple awards, including a BAFTA. For Corden, this was more than just professional success. It was the beginning of a public love affair with audiences. However, the meteoric rise that came with Gavin and Stacey wasn't without challenges. Fame, while exhilarating, brought with it immense pressure. Corden found himself juggling newfound celebrity status with the demands of his career. He soon ventured into other projects, including movies like Lesbian Vampire Killers and a sketch comedy series titled Horn and Corden. Unfortunately, these projects were met with lukewarm to outright negative reviews. Critics were harsh, calling the humor juvenile and the execution lackluster. For someone riding high on the success of Gavin and Stacey, these failures were a humbling reality check. Yet setbacks didn't deter him. In the years following Gavin and Stacey, Corden worked to establish himself as more than just a sitcom star. He hosted award shows and appeared in various TV specials showcasing his versatility. One such notable project was his role in the stage production of One Man, Two Guvnors, which earned him a Tony Award in 2012. His performance highlighted his ability to balance physical comedy with emotional depth, proving that his talent extended far beyond scripted sitcoms. By this time, Corden had become a household name in Britain, but he had ambitions that stretched far beyond his home country. In 2015, an unexpected opportunity came knocking when he was offered the role of hosting The Late Late Show in the United States. Replacing Craig Ferguson, a host known for his quirky and unique style, was no small task. Many questioned whether Corden, a British actor and comedian with little presence in America, could fill those shoes. Nevertheless, he accepted the challenge with enthusiasm, ready to reinvent himself for an entirely new audience. The move to the United States marked a pivotal moment in his career. Arriving in Los Angeles, he faced the daunting task of winning over an American audience. With the help of a talented production team, he revamped the show, incorporating fresh, engaging segments that would appeal to viewers across the Atlantic. One of the most notable of these was Carpool Karaoke, where Corden would drive around with celebrities singing along to their favorite tunes. The segment became an instant hit, going viral and bringing in millions of viewers. It wasn't just a show, it was a cultural phenomenon. Clips of carpool karaoke with stars like Adele, Justin Bieber, and Michelle Obama dominated social media, turning Corden into a global sensation. At the heart of his early success on The Late Late Show was his ability to connect with people. Whether it was through heartfelt interviews or humorous musical performances, he exuded an everyman charm that resonated with audiences. His self-deprecating humor and seemingly genuine enthusiasm endeared him to fans who saw him as approachable and relatable, even amidst Hollywood's glitz and glamour. For a time, it seemed like Corden could do no wrong. But as the saying goes, what goes up must come down. While James Corden's rise to fame was rapid and thrilling, the pressures of sustaining that success and maintaining his public image were challenges he could not have anticipated. For now, however, he basked in the glow of his accomplishments, unaware of the darker turns his career and public perception would soon take. As James Corden settled into his newfound stardom, the challenges of maintaining his reputation and balancing a demanding career began to surface. Fame, while rewarding, often came with its own set of trials, and Corden was no exception. His early years of widespread admiration started to give way to whispers of a different kind, stories that painted a less flattering picture of the charismatic entertainer. One of the first cracks in Corden's carefully cultivated image came during the Glamour Awards in 2010. While hosting the event, he found himself embroiled in a now infamous exchange with the legendary Sir Patrick Stewart. Stewart criticized Corden's hosting style, suggesting he appeared disinterested and unprofessional, a comment that visibly irked the comedian. Instead of diffusing the situation, Corden responded with biting sarcasm, escalating the awkwardness. The incident quickly went viral, becoming one of the earliest examples of how his quick wit could sometimes backfire. For fans who had come to adore him as the lovable Smithy, this public spat was jarring and marked a shift in how some began to perceive him. Around the same time, reports of Corden's behavior off-camera started to emerge. Industry insiders began to share stories of a man who was far removed from his affable on-screen persona. During his tenure on the game show A League of Their Own, allegations surfaced of him mocking writers and clashing with directors. In one particularly damning account, Corden was said to have lost his temper during a filming session, shouting profanities and berating the crew. While these incidents were largely confined to behind-the-scenes circles, they painted a picture of someone whose growing fame might have been taking a toll on his humility. The 2010 BAFTA Awards further fueled this narrative. When Gavin Stacey won the award for TV Program of the Year, it was expected that Corden, as the co-creator and star, would deliver a gracious acceptance speech. Instead, he opened with a complaint about not being nominated for the Comedy Award, a moment that many perceived as self-centered. For someone who had been lauded as a fresh and relatable comedic talent, this public display of entitlement was disheartening for fans and critics alike. Despite these controversies, Corden remained a dominant force in British entertainment. His hosting skills, while polarizing, kept him in demand for high-profile events. However, the cracks in his public persona began to deepen as his career expanded beyond the UK. By the time he transitioned to hosting The Late Late Show in 2015, whispers of his off-screen behavior had become louder, reaching an audience far beyond British shores. In America, Corden initially thrived. The show's innovative segments, particularly carpool karaoke, earned him widespread acclaim. Celebrities from all walks of life appeared on the segment, from pop icons like Adele to political figures like Michelle Obama. These episodes were a masterclass in blending humor with music, and they showcased Corden's ability to create memorable moments. Yet as his profile grew, so did the scrutiny. Fans and critics began to notice a pattern in Corden's interactions with his guests. While he often came across as engaging and witty, there were instances where his behavior seemed more self-serving than sincere. During some carpool karaoke episodes, he appeared overly theatrical, often overshadowing the celebrities who were meant to be the focal point. Critics argued that his attempts to outsing his guests and dominate the screen detracted from the charm of the segment. Additionally, a behind-the-scenes revelation that Corden wasn't actually driving the car during filming led to accusations of misleading his audience. Though this detail was relatively minor, it added to the growing narrative that he was not as authentic as he appeared. Meanwhile, his ventures into acting continued to yield mixed results. His role in Into the Woods 2014 was well received, showcasing his ability to balance comedic and dramatic tones. However, his subsequent projects, like Peter Rabbit 2018, received more critical feedback, with some questioning whether his on-screen persona had started to wear thin. While his voice work and physical comedy were serviceable, the roles often felt like an extension of his talk show personality, leaving little room for nuance. Back home in the UK, public opinion of Corden was becoming increasingly divided. For every fan who celebrated his accomplishments, there were detractors who found his behavior grating or his humor overly forced. His frequent appearances at award shows, where he often leaned into self-deprecating humor, began to feel repetitive to some audiences. What was once seen as endearing now felt like a calculated performance designed to mask his controversies rather than address them head-on. The mounting pressure to sustain his career on both sides of the Atlantic undoubtedly added strain. Corden himself has admitted in interviews that balancing his demanding schedule with his personal life was challenging. Despite his best efforts, the cracks in his public persona were becoming harder to ignore. While he continued to enjoy success professionally, the growing number of controversies and criticism began to cast a shadow over his achievements. As the years progressed, James Corden's career trajectory started to reflect the complex duality of fame. On one hand, he had achieved an extraordinary level of success, becoming a household name internationally. On the other, his reputation was increasingly marred by stories of arrogance and insincerity. The very qualities that had endeared him to audiences in the early days, his humor, charm, and relatability, were now being questioned. The challenges James Corden faced during this period were indicative of a broader phenomenon in the entertainment industry. As social media amplified every public misstep, celebrities like Corden found themselves navigating an unprecedented level of scrutiny. For someone who had built their career on being relatable, maintaining that image in the face of controversy was proving to be an uphill battle. As James Corden's career gained momentum in America, he seemed unstoppable. The Late Late Show had firmly established him as a household name, and Carpool Karaoke continued to generate viral moments, solidifying his place in pop culture. Yet, beneath the glossy exterior of his career, the pressures of his public persona and the weight of expectation were beginning to show. As his presence grew, so did the critiques, and the cracks that had started to appear earlier in his career began to widen. The mid-2010s marked the height of Corden's visibility. His charm and charisma made him a go-to host for high-profile events, including the Tony Awards, Grammy Awards, and numerous late-night specials. These gigs allowed him to showcase his comedic timing, musical talents, and ability to connect with diverse audiences. At first, the reviews were glowing. Audiences praised his upbeat energy and knack for creating memorable moments. Yet, over time, these appearances began to take on a repetitive quality. The same jokes, exaggerated gestures, and self-deprecating humor that once seemed fresh now felt overused. For critics, this predictability was a sign that his charm might be wearing thin. Corden's increasing ubiquity in Hollywood also drew criticism. From commercials to animated films and even guest spots in major blockbusters, it often felt like he was everywhere. For some, his omnipresence was a testament to his versatility and work ethic. For others, it was overexposure. Audiences began to question whether his relentless drive to stay relevant was driven by a genuine passion for his craft or a fear of losing his place in the limelight. One of the most divisive aspects of his career during this period was his foray into film. His role in Cats, 2019, a cinematic adaptation of the beloved musical, became a lightning rod for criticism. The film itself was widely panned, with many calling it a bizarre misstep for everyone involved. Corden's portrayal of Bustopher Jones, a pompous and gluttonous cat, drew particular ire. The combination of cringe-worthy dialogue, unsettling CGI, and exaggerated mannerisms made his performance one of the movie's low points. Even Corden himself admitted in interviews that he hadn't watched the film, a confession that, while humorous, only fueled the narrative that he might not take his roles seriously. Corden's performance in The Prom, 2020, proved equally controversial, though for different reasons. Playing the role of a flamboyant Broadway actor, his portrayal relied heavily on stereotypes that many in the LGBTQ+ community found offensive. Critics accused him of delivering a caricature rather than an authentic performance, a misstep that felt particularly egregious given the film's progressive themes. For a man who had built his career on relatability and charm, these performances marked a significant departure from what audiences had come to expect. Amid these controversies, another facet of Corden's public persona began to come under scrutiny: his interactions with fans and colleagues. Stories of his alleged rudeness continued to circulate, painting a picture of someone whose off-screen behavior didn't match his on-screen image. The most infamous of these incidents occurred in 2022 at New York's Balthazar restaurant. According to the restaurant's owner, Keith McNally, Corden berated staff over a minor issue with his order, allegedly going so far as to suggest he could do their jobs better. The incident made headlines, reigniting discussions about his treatment of others. Though Corden eventually apologized, the damage to his reputation was undeniable. The restaurant controversy was far from an isolated incident. Fellow celebrities, including Liam Gallagher and Ricky Gervais, had openly criticized Corden in interviews and social media posts, adding fuel to the fire. Gallagher, when asked if he would ever appear on Carpool Karaoke, dismissed the idea with a blunt, "Not with that knobhead." Similarly, Gervais accused Corden of stealing one of his jokes almost word for word, a claim that highlighted the growing perception of Corden as unoriginal or disingenuous. Even Corden's signature segment, Carpool Karaoke, wasn't immune to criticism. While initially celebrated as a fun and innovative concept, it began to lose its luster over time. Fans grew tired of the overly rehearsed nature of the segments, and revelations that the car wasn't always driven by Corden himself added an air of inauthenticity. For a man whose brand relied so heavily on relatability, these moments chipped away at his carefully constructed image. Despite the mounting controversies, Corden remained a prominent figure in entertainment. His charm and comedic talent still resonated with many, and his work continued to attract A-list collaborators. Yet for every fan who defended him, there seemed to be another who had grown disenchanted. The duality of his public perception was becoming more pronounced, with his detractors often being just as vocal as his supporters. As Corden navigated these challenges, the pressures of maintaining his public image became increasingly apparent. His on-screen persona often felt like a performance, a carefully curated act designed to mask the criticisms swirling around him. While his humor and charisma still shone through in many moments, there was a growing sense that the authenticity that had once endeared him to audiences was slipping away. By the late 2010s, James Corden's career had reached a pivotal juncture. The successes that had propelled him to international fame were now accompanied by controversies that threatened to overshadow his achievements. His ability to connect with audiences, once his greatest strength, was being questioned like never before. As he continued to forge ahead, it became clear that the path forward would require more than just charm and talent. It would demand a reckoning with the very qualities that had both built and threatened to undo his career. As James Corden's career marched into the 2020s, the mounting controversies surrounding his name began to overshadow the bright moments of his professional success. His seemingly relentless drive to stay in the spotlight was beginning to wear thin with audiences, critics, and even some of his peers. The cracks in his public persona, once dismissed as minor blemishes, had deepened into fissures that were impossible to ignore. One of the most glaring turning points came with the release of Cats in 2019. This high-profile adaptation of Andrew Lloyd Webber's beloved musical was supposed to be a triumph, bringing together a star-studded cast that included Taylor Swift, Idris Elba, and Judi Dench. However, the film was universally panned, with its unsettling CGI and lackluster performances becoming the subject of widespread ridicule. Corden's role as Bustopher Jones, a pompous, food-loving cat, became emblematic of the movie's failure. Critics lambasted his performance as over-the-top and cringeworthy, with some noting that it leaned too heavily on exaggerated gags that felt dated and uninspired. Corden's subsequent admission that he hadn't even bothered to watch the film only added fuel to the fire, painting him as a participant who lacked genuine investment in the project. Around the same time, his appearance in The Prom also drew sharp criticism. Playing the role of a flamboyant gay Broadway actor, Corden's performance was seen by many as tone-deaf and reliant on outdated stereotypes. While the film itself carried messages of inclusion and acceptance, Corden's portrayal struck a discordant note. Members of the LGBTQ+ community, along with critics, argued that the role would have been better served by an actor who could bring authenticity to the character. Instead, Corden's exaggerated mannerisms and cliched delivery felt more like a caricature than a celebration, further alienating audiences who were already questioning his authenticity. As these professional missteps accumulated, stories of his off-screen behavior continued to surface, tarnishing his once-beloved public image. The Balthazar restaurant controversy in 2022 became one of the defining moments of this period. According to reports, Corden berated staff over an issue with his wife's omelet, allegedly yelling and demeaning them in a way that many found unacceptable. While Keith McNally, the restaurant's owner, publicly called him out for his behavior, Corden initially brushed off the incident as overblown. It was only after significant public backlash that he issued an apology. However, by that point, the damage was done. The incident wasn't just about a bad interaction at a restaurant. It symbolized a growing perception of Corden as entitled and out of touch. This perception wasn't helped by other incidents that began to resurface. For instance, fans recalled the Glamour Awards spat with Patrick Stewart, the allegations of rudeness on the set of A League of Their Own, and even instances of Corden interrupting or overshadowing his celebrity guests on The Late Late Show. The narratives surrounding him became increasingly difficult to ignore, as they painted a consistent picture of someone whose behind-the-scenes behavior clashed starkly with the affable personality he projected on screen. Even Corden's bread-and-butter segment, Carpool Karaoke, began to lose its sheen during this time. What had once been a delightful blend of music, humor, and camaraderie began to feel overly staged and repetitive. Revelations that the car wasn't always driven by Corden himself further eroded the segment's credibility. Fans started to question whether the authenticity that had initially drawn them in was still present, or if it had been replaced by a carefully orchestrated performance designed solely for virality. As his reputation in the public eye deteriorated, so did his reception among his peers. Figures like Ricky Gervais and Liam Gallagher openly criticized him, with Gervais accusing him of plagiarizing one of his jokes and Gallagher dismissing him with a blunt refusal to appear on Carpool Karaoke. These public rebukes added to the growing narrative that Corden's success had come at the cost of goodwill from those within the industry. Despite all of this, Corden pressed on, continuing to host The Late Late Show and participate in various projects. Yet the controversies and criticism began to overshadow his accomplishments, making it increasingly difficult for audiences to separate the man from the negative headlines. Even as he made attempts to reclaim his earlier charm, such as by returning to the Gavin and Stacey franchise for a Christmas special, the reception was mixed. While the special was warmly received by some, it also sparked debates about whether Corden's involvement had overshadowed the rest of the cast and crew. By 2023, Corden announced that he would be stepping down from The Late Late Show, citing a desire to spend more time with his family and return to the UK. The announcement came at a time when public sentiment about him was at a crossroads. For some, his departure marked the end of an era, a bittersweet farewell to a host who had brought laughter and creativity to late-night television. For others, it felt like a long overdue exit, brought on not by a desire to prioritize family, but by the weight of mounting criticism. The farewell episode of The Late Late Show, featuring Adele, encapsulated the duality of Corden's public perception. On one hand, it was a poignant and heartfelt goodbye, filled with nostalgia and genuine emotion. On the other hand, critics argued that it was overly sentimental and self-indulgent, with Corden focusing more on his own narrative than on the legacy of the show itself. For many, this final episode was emblematic of the broader challenges Corden had faced throughout his career. A constant struggle to balance authenticity with performance, humility with ambition. As Corden left the stage and returned to the UK, the question remained: could he rebuild his reputation, or had the controversies that defined the latter half of his career left a permanent stain on his legacy? The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: James Corden's story was far from over. Returning to the UK marked a pivotal moment in James Corden's career. After years in the relentless spotlight of American late-night television, he sought a different pace, one that might allow him to reconnect with his roots and repair the cracks in his public image. However, As much as the move symbolized a fresh start, it also carried the weight of unresolved controversies and the public's increasingly divided opinions about him. The immediate aftermath of his departure from The Late Late Show was met with mixed reactions. While some celebrated his contributions to late-night television, others viewed his exit as a consequence of the mounting backlash he faced in recent years. Corden's own explanation, wanting to spend more time with his family, seemed genuine to some but struck others as a convenient way to bow out amid the noise of his controversies. Regardless of the reasoning, his return to the UK presented an opportunity to rebuild his image, though it wouldn't be an easy task. One of his first major moves after coming home was revisiting Gavin Stacey, the show that had launched him to stardom. The Christmas special, which aired shortly after his return, garnered significant attention. Fans of the original series tuned in with anticipation, eager to see their beloved characters back on screen. The special was generally well received, praised for its nostalgic charm and clever writing. Yet, even this return to form wasn't without its critics. Some felt that Corden's presence as both writer and actor overshadowed the collaborative nature of the show, with detractors accusing him of using it as a vehicle to reclaim public favor. Beyond Gavin Stacey, Corden began exploring other projects in the UK. While he largely avoided the high-profile Hollywood-style productions that had defined his American career, his involvement in various British TV specials and charity events hinted at a deliberate effort to recast himself as a more grounded and relatable figure. He leaned into his natural charisma and comedic timing, qualities that had endeared him to audiences in the first place, but now tempered them with a quieter, more introspective energy. Despite these efforts, the shadow of his past controversies loomed large. Stories of his alleged behavior continued to resurface, particularly on social media, where audiences were quick to revisit old incidents. Memes and videos highlighting his more infamous moments, from the Patrick Stewart clash to the restaurant debacle, gained traction online. In an era where public figures are scrutinized more than ever, the internet became a double-edged sword for Corden, a place where his successes were celebrated, but also where his missteps were immortalized. However, Corden appeared to recognize the need for change. In interviews following his return, he spoke candidly about the pressures of fame and the toll it had taken on his mental health and personal life. He acknowledged that his relentless pursuit of success in America had come at a cost, not just to himself, but also to those around him. These moments of vulnerability struck a chord with some fans, offering a glimpse of the man behind the headlines. Yet for others, these admissions felt like too little, too late, a calculated attempt to regain public favor rather than a genuine reckoning. Reactions from his peers were equally mixed. While some applauded his introspection and efforts to evolve, others remained skeptical, viewing his return as a retreat rather than a fresh start. Fellow comedians and industry insiders continued to comment on his past behavior, ensuring that his reputation remained a topic of conversation. This persistent scrutiny underscored the challenges he faced in rebuilding his image. While he could control his current actions, the narrative of his past was largely out of his hands. As time went on, Corden's career in the UK began to stabilize. He embraced projects that allowed him to showcase his comedic talents without the intense pressure of international stardom. Appearances on British panel shows, guest roles in TV specials, and smaller-scale productions provided a welcome change of pace. These endeavors, while more modest in scope, allowed him to reconnect with the British audiences who had supported him during his early career. Slowly but surely, there were signs that public opinion was beginning to soften, though it remained far from unanimous. The duality of James Corden's public perception, beloved by some, reviled by others, remains a defining aspect of his legacy. For his supporters, he is a talented entertainer who brought joy and laughter to millions, from his heartfelt performances in Gavin Stacey to his viral antics on The Late Late Show. For his detractors, he represents the pitfalls of fame, a cautionary tale of how success can amplify flaws and invite relentless scrutiny. Corden's journey serves as a reminder of the complexities of celebrity culture in the modern era. The very qualities that make public figures relatable, authenticity, charm, vulnerability, are also the ones most closely examined when controversies arise. For Corden, navigating this landscape has been a delicate balancing act. one that has required both introspection and resilience. As he continues to forge his path, it's clear that James Corden's story is far from over. Whether he chooses to stay in the UK, embracing a quieter life and focusing on smaller projects, or ventures back into the international spotlight, the lessons of his past will undoubtedly shape his future. For now, he remains a figure of fascination, an entertainer who has experienced the dizzying highs and crushing lows of fame, all under the watchful eyes of an audience that continues to debate his place in the world of entertainment. With that, we have reached the end of today's video. If you have come this far with us, be sure to check out other videos on the channel.